Every 3 years, the Organization for International Cooperation and Development, the OECD, which has all of the developed countries of the world, tests students around the world. These tests, called the PISA test for the Program for International Student Assessment, give a comparative ranking of how our students do against students in other countries. The results are pretty sobering. The US does not do well. It ranks around the level of Spain and the Russian Federation. And more than that, we don't do well at either the top or bottom. Our best students are not as good as the best students in other countries, and our worst students are also, we have a lot of poor students. Now this has huge implications for the US, but anybody who knows about these tests often tries to ignore them in the United States. Other countries spend a lot of time looking at these, but the United States, they try to argue that, in fact, these tests don't mean anything. What I believe is that all the people who have this opinion are wrong, that these tests are really important to the United States. The most important reason is that these tests are highly correlated with what our workforce will look like in the future, and the quality of our workforce determines the amount of economic growth in the United States. Now, some people just discount that and say, oh, we have a strong economy. And remember, 25 or 30 years ago, a nation at risk said that our schools were going to hurt our economy, and it hasn't happened. But the simple answer is that we have the best economic system in the world right now, and that's enough to overcome the deficiencies of our schools and our students. In the future, there's reason to believe that we will not be able to ride on our good economy because all the other economies of the world are also getting better. But other people say, oh, the tests don't reflect anything about the schools. It's all that we have more poor kids than other countries. But that doesn't hold up with the data. If it's just having more poor kids, you would expect to have as many high flyers, as many really top students as the best countries in the world. Well, we have 8% of our students that are in the top 2 categories of the International Math Assessments, and there are a number of countries from Japan and Korea to the Netherlands that have over 20% of their students in the top categories. In fact, Canada has almost twice as many students in the top categories as we do. Well, one of the other arguments is, well, tests don't matter. It's something to do with the perseverance, the grit, the determination of students, and it's non-cognitive skills that matter, not the cognitive skills as measured on these tests. But again, while these traits are probably important, we don't have good evidence of how they affect the economy. But we do have good evidence of how tests and skills of math and reading and science that are measured by these tests affect the economy. And it's a big impact. For example, if we were at the level of Canada in terms of the performance on these tests, we would expect to have, according to historical record, 20% higher paychecks on average for the entire rest of the century. It makes a big difference. So when we look at these stories, what we see is that we shouldn't ignore the PISA test. The final argument that people use is, oh, we've got enough college graduates. We see unemployed college graduates. Why do we need any more? And the answer there is that the economy will absorb and use high quality graduates, scientists, and engineers if we produce them. Right now, particularly when you sit in Silicon Valley, you see that there are shortages of the best students. So we shouldn't ignore these tests. We should also not ignore the fact that some countries have shown that you can get better on these tests. We see a number of countries, including Germany and Poland, that have improved their scores over the last decade, improved their scores by an amount that would have huge implications economically for the US.